This world is not real, says Vedanta, says spirituality. The world we see is not what it seems. The world that we imagine, which is full of objects, full of terms, full of themes, full of events that we see, this is an imagination of our mind. This is not really how the world works. In fact, if you think about it, if you step behind just this appearance, what is making this world uh, look like it does right now? What is making events happen as they do happen? It's very mysterious. Like events like even this, like this class or whatever we have going on during the week. What makes the events culminate and produce that event that you encounter? That meeting with the person, that accomplishment, or that complete change up in your life, you know? And in this what we're going to talk about today, I just want to gently challenge that any events actually happen and put up the idea that maybe the event is just an imagination of our mind. How is it imagination of our mind? Because we objectify the streams of energy that are happening in the world and then we give it a name. You see? There are so many things happening in this world. This world is a flowing river of energy. There are currents that are constantly passing by. We are part of the current. There's things manifesting, there's things going away. Right? Who is to say this is where it starts, this is where it ends? Who's to say, oh, this is a bad thing, oh, this is a great thing? Everything is streaming. Look, the traffic is moving. Look, our careers are progressing in a certain way. Years are flying. Families are adjusting. It's just energy. And to see this, we need to kind of go back a little bit and move back from our identity as this person around whom we have created this imagination that the world is this and that. Right? Because in order to see the world in a certain way, we have to take a reference point. I'm looking at it from here, so therefore this is an event, this is an event. Oh, this is good, oh, this is bad. That's just the imagination of our ego. If you remove the reference point, this whole thing is just flowing. It's like when you see a river coming down the mountain, the water, it's gushing, it's bubbling, it's taking turns, right? And this continuous stream is going down wherever it needs to reach. And it's only by coming close to it and looking at a certain shape of a wave or a certain formation in the water because of the way it flows down, then we look at it and we say, oh, look at this wonderful happening. This is something. This water shape that has just been produced, this is something, and we objectify it. You see? And then this is what's happening in our lives as well. There is no such thing as even, opinions of ourselves, opinions of other people. This is just transient phenomena. It's flowing. It's only because we stop, we look, and we judge from our reference point, do we give it a name and do we think that something has happened? No, nothing has happened. It's a river. Everything is a river. So in the Supreme Yoga Vasishta, Vasishta is saying that when we abandon ourself, when we leave our true self, the true self, not the egoic reference point, but who we really are, the consciousness, the Atman, the soul. When we abandon that and we think of an object, then what happens is that the mind becomes the subject. Before that, there is no object and subject in this world. Everything is just flowing. But when we zoom in and we objectify something, we say this is a particular thing, then instantly we become the subject. Instantly we've just created object-subject relationship. We've just created that this is what I'm seeing, and then I'm the observer, I'm this point, and with that all judgment comes, all happiness comes, and all sorrow comes as well. Because we've just zoomed in into this huge river of life, and we've now created something we're looking at, and now we created the one who is looking, right? And then Vasishta says, and thus we become the subject of unhappiness as a result of the objectification of life. Unhappiness comes from objectification. Objectification is the problem. Okay, and we know this from in social sciences. We know this from practical life. We don't like to be objectified. We want to define ourselves, and this is good. Spirituality says this is beautiful. We're all on the path of self-definition. We are the ones who want to take back that power. No, don't objectify me. Don't tell me who I am. I'm going to discover myself. And we go through life, we'll go through the river of life, slowly redefining that definition, adjusting to what feels like a truer self, more and more, until we get to our true self, which is the supreme consciousness, which is the supreme self, the pure, unalloyed consciousness, untouched by anything, blissful and pure, our real self, completely content. You know what Paulette was reading, the peace, the true peace from God, where we actually don't need anything from this world. And yet it doesn't mean things of this world will not come. The river is always gushing. In fact, it's when we let go of objectifications, we let go of like, oh, I have to have this because I'm thinking I'm this. No, I don't want that because I'm thinking I'm that. When we let go of that and we go back to our true self, what is that entity? What is that entity which is actually here? Who are we really? What is our, like if you take away all of these identities in a way, this and like objectified identity, if we take away the objectified things, who is left? It is you, the real you, which is peaceful beyond imagination. Okay, and you exist in the hands of God. We exist in the hands of God, abiding in peace always, untouched by the river of life. Okay, so then he says is that any judging of the world other than knowing who we really are is what we call mind. The judging of the world, which has nothing to do with the truth of ourselves, that is the activity of the mind. That is the judging, that is the thought, that is the emotion, and that is the root of sorrow. As soon as we have mind, like it or not, go to therapy or not, go to studies or not, sorrow is guaranteed. As long as we have mind, there is going to be sorrow. Why? Because the mind is where you have just created that separation between yourself and the world, an artificial separation. Mind is separation. Mind is the separation. It's described that this whole world is actually God. There is no world. The whole thing is just the beautiful existence of God. But then, as if taking a balloon, which when flat has no volume, and blowing air into it, it expands. So this world is the expansion of mind. Our experience in life is the expansion of mind, but actually, when this expansion, so to speak, these thoughts that we have, it goes back to its original state, then only God remains. Only God remains in you. Only God remains outside. And this play between objectifying things, creating more thoughts, creating more reactions in the world, is the expanding of the mind. And you know that the bigger our knowledge is, the more there is to worry about. The more things we pursue, the more things we want afterwards. The more we have desires, the more we have afterwards. The more we have fears, the more fears breed from that. It's that balloon. The bigger you make the balloon of an imaginary existence, the more it multiplies, and there is no end to it. And Yoga Vasishta says that is the root of sorrow. If you want peace, go back to your true self. Now, it doesn't mean quit life and go away. No, the river of life is flowing regardless of whether we pursue things or not. We don't control the river of life. The river of life is controlled by God. The river of life is controlled by the Mother, the Mahashakti, the Shakti of the universe, the cosmic power. We have no control over the river of life. This is a very funny thing, okay? But when this balloon of mind is expanded, okay, the ego in the mind misunderstands, and it thinks that we need to control how the river flows. You know, like a little water bubble in that river, it stops and it's like, it looks around and it's like, oh no, there's so much water coming from behind me. I need to do something. I need to get out of the way. Or like, oh, look at this. I need to take this turn. And then as the bubble flows, bop, 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 goes to here, it says, oh yes, I did it. Good job. You know? Nonsense. This is all imagination. This is Maya. This is the conjuring of the ego. We have nothing to do with this. And this is like, you know, what I'm telling you now, that this is Vedanta. This is deep teachings, you know, so it takes some time to kind of see their application in life. But I have to tell you to how it is. Okay? The liberation, the freedom from suffering comes when this little bubble of ego in our lives, it starts to let go of control, right? So whoever you're reading, it starts to let go of control a little bit and let God do it. The ego starts to become smart. It says, wait a second, I actually got more peace when I didn't try to do this, that. I got more peace when I didn't create these stories, when I didn't objectify things. Somehow things still got done. There's some power here operating, and sometimes, you know, when I trust that power, it does a way better job than me. And eventually we come to realize that I wasn't even doing anything. That power was the doer the whole time. And this balloon of mind, this balloon of ego and worries and concerns, as it deflates, as it starts to, which is the same thing as surrendering to that power, it starts to deflate, and then it becomes just the blissful existence. Our self just rests. It trusts the river. Wherever the river takes us, we see that it's actually for our benefit. It's helping us. The river is always helping. It's always helping the bubbles. It knows what it needs to do. And then we can rest in peace. We can rest in peace knowing that everything is taken care of. This whole universe is the river of love. And actually, by the more we surrender to the love, the more love manifests. We cannot make the love. The ego cannot make the love. It's surrendering to the love of the universe, which is its very fabric of the material from which it's made. It's the love, but to see the love, the ego first has to surrender to the love. It has to see that the love is not coming from the ego identity, it's coming from the material from which it's made, which is God. And this giving back, so to speak, of God, until we realize that actually our whole being was also made of water. Everything is made of water, and everything belongs to God. Everything belongs to God. This body, this mind, even our ego is made of the same stuff as this whole universe is made. It was never ours. That was the confusion. The confusion was coming from the ego thinking that this is ours. And with that comes all the problems of life. As soon as we think, no, this is me, then we're like, oh no, I have to do something. The enlightenment comes when we realize that this is not ours. I'm just the observer in this body. This is actually part of God's body. God also has a body. God's body is all of us. And when we see that, now this is not just an intellectual exercise. Intellectually, this does not work, okay? It's a realization and awakening that this is actually God's. It is Very liberating. It is such a liberating awakening, because then you realize that if you just go with the flow of God, the flow of love, the flow of fearlessness, then you will see that everything becomes, you become easier, life becomes happier.